My name is Deidre and I am part of E3 Ministry Canada. So I grew up in a home with a really young mom. She had me at 15 years of age. And this instilled in me that really I didn't feel that important or like I mattered. And it was just because she was so young and she had so much trauma in her life that she was trying to fill the void in her own heart through men. And then eventually in her 20s, she's got into prostitution and addiction. And that wasn't in our home, but it was in her, everything that was going on. So I just really felt neglected as a kid. And on top of that, then I grew up and I was a ginger and I had big glasses. So in school, I didn't belong either. And it was just really hard. I just felt like I had nowhere that felt safe or to belong. Like I didn't fit in anywhere. So I remember when I was younger, I believed there was God, and I remember watching, Touched by an Angel stories and things like that, and believing in angels and even saying little prayers. But there was a lie that had been instilled in my heart from a young girl that I needed to be good enough in order to receive Christ into my life. To the point that when I was younger, I remember praying, and I've never heard anybody else tell me this, but I remember praying, Lord, don't come into my life yet because I can't be good enough. And to me, that meant that once I accepted Jesus, I had to be perfect. And I couldn't mess up anymore or there was no more chances for me. That's such a lie and it's really destructive. So one time I was, preteen years. I went to church because my mom was going to church because I wanted to spend time with my mom. And my mom was going to church because her dad was going to church and she wanted to spend time with him. And I think he was bringing us to church to have us encounter Jesus. And it was a big church that always did an altar call. And what that means is they basically were like, whoever wants to receive God today and start walking with him, come to the front. And I remember going up to the front. But before I did, I almost forgot a part. Before I went to the front, my heart's pounding. And that lie is running through my head of, no, you can't go up yet because you're not going to be perfect. Like you're not perfect yet. And I don't even know when I was expecting as a human to be perfect, but that lie was sitting there. And the pastor spoke something directly to it where he said, you don't need to leave here perfect. You're just starting a relationship with Jesus. And then I was like, oh, maybe I can go up. So I walked up to the front and I prayed with them and they prayed over me and they gave me a Bible and that began my journey. And it's not like from that instant it was all easy and everything was all gone. Here I am, a young preteen teenage girl living in a home with a mom that is in prostitution and struggling in addiction, and her boyfriends weren't always my favorite, and just trying to process my own life and my own emotions. So I'm so thankful that God met me in that space because I was in a church that taught me that I could hear from God and that he would speak to me and that I could pray to him. So I really just clung to him. I clung to him and I prayed and I was like, Lord, help me to know how to love my family because I find them hard to love because sometimes they were mean. God, give me strength today. Lord, help me to speak to the kids at my school and share about you, and just started to build this really close relationship and trust him and start to pray for my mom and trust that if you are God of the universe, you can do anything and you can set her free from this bondage she was living in addiction and in prostitution. So I'm praying and you can imagine, like you see me here as I'm speaking as an adult woman, but I'm a teenager and I'm young and I don't even know probably what I'm praying to have the time, but it was a heart prayer and just a humble prayer before the Lord. And he worked through my life. He gave me love for her, words to speak to her that she still remembers that half the time I don't remember. And I prayed for her for 8 years. And now she is following the Lord and she is helping women who are exiting prostitution and human trafficking. And every time I think about it, it just brings me so much joy. But through my own life, there's been a lot to process. There's been a lot of hurt and trauma and pain and hard things. And I'm so thankful that I did learn that I could hear from God. So what I would do as a young teenage girl is I'd sit and I'd write out all my emotions to God, like how I felt, my hurts, my pains, everything. And then at the end, I'd pause for a second and I would just write, Lord, what are you saying to me today? And I would stop and I would just listen. And I was just listening in my heart. And then I would start writing what I felt like he was saying. And in the beginning, I often would hear, I love you. And then kind of second guess it of like, oh yeah, of course I'm going to think that because that's what God's supposed to say. But as I got older and started to read the Bible more and know who God was, when I read back those journals where God was speaking to me, there were some profound things that he was saying that actually was in his word that I didn't know about. So God has been my comforter. He's been my deliverer. He's been my healer. He has been the one that just comes and meets me in those dark, hard spaces and heals my heart. And I'm so thankful that I learned from a young age, I don't have to hide all these emotions. I just got to bring them to him. And also, I don't need to come before him perfect. I just need to come to him and he's the one that's transforming me. So I am extremely grateful that I met the Lord at that young, pivotal age that I was. And then he has seen me through so many things in my life. And I know that you might be looking at me and thinking, oh, she's still probably like 20. Most people think I'm really young, but I'm 37 now. So from like 12 to 37, he has seen me through so many things. And what I just want to say is if you are somebody that thinks that God is so harsh and looking down on you with disappointment and angry, that's just from your pain and your trauma, because God has always been gentle to me and he has fathered me in a way that I probably can't even put into words, but he's always been there through the darkest times, through the lowest times. And following him doesn't mean that everything has been easy, but it means that I've not been alone. And he has taught me through every season and lesson in my life. And he's transformed me, and he's going to continue to transform me till the day that Jesus comes back.
Deidre, what would you say to someone who feels like God doesn't answer prayers?
I've prayed a lot in my life, and I often pray one prayer where I say, Lord, give me eyes to see and ears to hear and a soft heart to listen and follow. Because I believe that God is speaking to us all the time, but we also need to ask him to help us see where he's speaking or see the little things that he's doing. And sometimes he doesn't answer prayer the way that we want him to, because he knows what is the ultimate best. So sometimes when I'm praying for something and maybe it's a no or it's a not right now or a different way, is I have to put trust and prayer together that ultimately, God, you are good and you love me and you hear my heart, and I have to trust you. And that's why 8 years, it wasn't like I prayed and then the next day my mom came to God, or the next day I prayed for a lot of things. It was persistence of 8 years. Am I going to trust you, Lord? Am I going to continue to pray for her? Am I going to continue to battle in the spiritual realm and believe that there is more and speak life over her?
Deidre, could you just pray for the viewers who are going to watch this?
So God, I thank you so much for your goodness. And I know sometimes, Lord, when we're walking through life that we don't always see the goodness. But Lord, I ask that whoever is watching this video right now would just encounter your presence and your love, God, that you would open their eyes up to your goodness, to your love, that you give them ears to hear you, and a soft heart that is willing to receive all that you have for them. In your name, Jesus. Amen.
Thank you, Deidre.